2024, another great year, second year in a row, back to back, very positive, strong gains for the market, obviously strong gains for Bitcoin. But now in 2025, we've got quite a bit of volatility coming back, certainly over the last week, and then especially yesterday. How are you viewing 2025? And has anything in the past 24 hours or week changed your mind? Has anything changed in your outlook? Is one of the things I think a lot of people are dying to know.
Um, Thank you, Chris. For many folks who are here, I am sure you own stocks and digital assets. And 2024 was a year where the S&P gained over 20%. But it was a year where many folks had warned investors to be cautious because they either expected a recession with the inverted yield curve, and many had guaranteed us a recession really for the last few years, or that the Fed needed to engineer some sort of recession to kill inflation, or that the election in the fall was going to cause the stock market to crash. Those are what I would call classic walls of worry, and markets tend to climb a wall of worry. As we entered 2025, our view for our clients was that we were constructive for 2025, and that's even in the face of the fact that the S&P had posted two back-to-back gains of 20%. And the reasons we were positive really reflected a few things. One is we thought that the macro environment was going to be very favorable. The Fed is in an easing cycle, even though we don't know how much the Fed's going to cut. That is dovish for stocks. The second is that this incoming administration is the most pro-business administration we've had for several generations, and it is a big contrast to the last 4 years, where businesses, I think, were dealing with a growth in regulation and regulatory cost. That should be reflected in the ISM Manufacturing Index, which has been below 50 for 26 months, to finally move back above 50. The ISM survey has been around for 70 years, and many people may not be too familiar with it, but it's been a way to speak to purchasing managers. And when this index is above 50, that means overall business activity is rising. It's been below 50 for more than 2.5 years. That is highly correlated to earnings growth. So I think S&P earnings will actually surprise to the upside in 2025. And the third thing that I think is quite positive for this year is that there is already skepticism about what equities can do. And that's because we already had two back-to-back 20% years. And on slide 5, which I'd sent to the Fidelity team, shows you the 6 precedent instances where the markets had back-to-back gains of 20%. Couple things stand out. One is that the first half of the markets tend to do better than the second half. That's what this slide shows. But I think the bigger takeaway we had when we looked at two back-to-back years of 20% was you have to put context into the year before you had back-to-back gains of 20%. The S&P fell 20% in 2022. So even though 2023 and 2024 were good years, the cumulative gain for the S&P was only 27%, which is a compounded gain of 7% a year. Those 6 precedents that I'm highlighting here had a compounded annual gain of close to 20%. So what does that mean? The S&P entering 2025 is coming off 3 years where the gain was below long-term average. I think that that's the reason why stocks will probably surprise to the upside this year.